Hello buddy, it's Bendominator and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Fortnite's new no building and whether or not I think that Fortnite is better or worse without building. To do this, I'm going to be listing both the pros and cons of building and no building, and of course these are all going to be just my opinion. If you guys want to let me know your opinion, feel free to let me know in the comments of this video. You can also leave a like if you end up enjoying this video, subscribe if you are new because I make videos like this all the time, and you can also use my supporter creator code Bendominator in the Fortnite item shop, #ad. Let's go ahead and get right into the video. So first, let's start off with building. Let's start off with the pros of building. So first off, building is just fun. I just think building's a good addition to Fortnite. I think it's a fun time. It makes fights interesting. It makes fights unique. And that moves on to the next point, is building makes the game way more unique. Building is one of the many things that separated Fortnite from other BR games. It's one of those things that changed up Fortnite, and I think it's one of the reasons why it became so popular and it became so competitive. And yeah, it is really unique. It's really nice. It's good to be able to block enemy fire with just a simple wall or push an opponent with a ramp, and of course get way more complex with it with doing things like build fighting, box fighting, and other things like piece control, editing, all that kind of stuff. It can definitely become very in-depth, very competitive, but I think it could be really fun, really satisfying, but it can also have a big skill gap, but we'll get to that with the cons section. Moving on with more pros, we also have making endgames more interesting. I believe that endgames are way more interesting with building as opposed to no building. Endgames are just a lot more fun with building because you got forts everywhere, you got people pushing left and right. It gets pretty intense and I think it's a lot of fun, even if it can be really sweaty at times. I also think that traversal with building is just a lot easier. It's a way easier to kind of move around the map when you have the ability to make ramps. Makes it easier to scale mountains, get to the roofs of buildings, all that kind of stuff. And especially with items like bouncers and launch pads and that kind of stuff, those kind of trap items are also really fun when they are in the loot pool, of course. But let's move on to the cons of building, because there are a few cons as well. First off, building really does increase the skill gap of the game. Players have gotten extremely good at building, even from early seasons of Fortnite, such as Chapter 1 Season 5. Players have really begun to master build fighting, box fighting, piece control, editing, and all the different elements that make building what it is today. And yeah, it can be pretty frustrating to go up against players that are like extremely insanely good at the game. It can be really difficult at times. So the game is definitely a lot harder when building is in the mix, which can definitely be frustrating for some players, including myself. And then you also have the need to endlessly farm mats, which can get kind of annoying. I mean, as someone who's been playing Fortnite for a long time, I've gotten used to it at this point, but it is kind of a negative where you do have to be farming quite a bit. Now let's move on to the pros and cons of a no building. With the pros, matches are less stressful and feel more fair. Again, the skill gap is much smaller now that building is gone, and it feels a lot more fair when you get into a fight. You feel like you have a lot more control. And yeah, without building, it feels like a way more even playing field. But that doesn't mean the game is completely easy, because of course you still gotta be good at aiming, you still gotta have good strategy, you still gotta have things like good positioning and stuff like that. The game also in turn feels way more casual. It's a lot more opening and inviting to brand new players, which I think is important because I think the building has kind of scared people away from the game for a while, especially with how good people have gotten. It's definitely harder for newer players to enjoy the game when everybody is building all over them, because building is something that takes a really long time to learn. It's a skill that you really gotta master. But without the building, it's way easier to learn the game, it's way easier to get into the game, and it makes the scene just a lot more casual, and you still have modes like Arena for the people who want to be competitive. The current loot pool also fits no building very well right now as well. I love the new AUG, I love the new ARs and all the red dot scopes, all the aim down sight stuff, and shotguns like the drum are also really good when there isn't any building. Same with SMGs like the combat. The only thing we're missing is some good snipers. It also makes early games more fun because they can still be chaotic without being annoying. Like, if you go to Tilted Towers right now, it's actually not too bad. I mean, I always love Tilted Towers, but the build fighting there can get a little out of hand sometimes. It can be a bit frustrating. It can feel like a game of Zone Wars sometimes. But without the building, it feels a lot more survivable. It feels a lot more fun. It feels a lot more satisfying to get kills in the early game, but when we get to the con section, we'll talk a bit about how the late game suffers due to this. I also think that without building, vehicles are a lot more viable. I mean, vehicles have always been viable, but especially things like the tanks and cars, I feel like are a lot more fun to use, and I tend to go into vehicles a lot more often without the building. One, because you don't have launch pads to use for easy mobility, and two, you feel a lot more protected in these vehicles. Before, the vehicles, you kind of felt a bit vulnerable, but now you feel more protected because you don't have the option of building. Usually building a box would be safer than staying in a car, but now it feels like the cars, and especially the tanks, are your safe spot. But now for the no building cons, I feel like some kills can feel a bit less rewarding. Some kills kind of feel a bit too easy. And I feel like with building, it was a lot more fun to get certain kills, especially satisfying build edits and stuff like that. It felt a lot more fun when you were doing really, really well. Now when you're doing really, really well, there's only so well you can do, if you kind of get what I mean. I also feel as if each match has a bit less variety to it now, since there isn't the unpredictability of builds and different builds being around the map and stuff like that. So that's something to consider as well. And I think the thing that is the most impacted by no building is the end games. I think the end games have kind of seen a bit of a hit now. I don't find end games nearly as enjoyable without the building. I don't know if that's just me, but I think end games are a lot more exciting when you're up in those forts and you're sniping people from down below, or you're getting the high ground, or you're trying to steal the high ground from somebody else, or there's all these different fights going on around you. Yes, it can be really difficult to survive in those scenarios, but when you do, it feels a lot more rewarding. But now it kind of just feels like a bunch of people camping with ARs in the end game or running around with tanks and stuff. So I'm not a huge fan of how the end games have turned out due to the no building. It's not terrible, I just definitely prefer the end games with building. And then also, it encourages a bit more of a campy playstyle. No building kind of encourages people to camp a little bit more than they would normally do, which for some people may actually be a good thing. It may call back to the old days of Fortnite where a lot more people did camp, but for me, I think that the camping can be a bit excessive sometimes. It's not too crazy. Again, it's not too bad of a con, it's just something that I've noticed. Playstyles definitely have changed a bit since the no building, which is to be expected. It's just the campy playstyles are a bit less desirable, in my opinion. And that also contributes to the end games being a bit more boring. So now that I've listed the pros and cons of both building and no building, what is my final verdict? Well, this may be a bit surprising, but in my opinion, I think Fortnite overall is a more fun and enjoyable experience with building. I prefer building, but I do hope that no building stays, and of course it doesn't mean that I dislike no building, because I really love no building, especially right now. I'm having such a fun time with it, and I honestly hope it's a mode that stays with us for the rest of Fortnite's existence, because this is a mode I'm definitely going to want to play a lot. And considering how this season is going right now, I do think that this season is heavily in favor of the no building playstyle. But in my opinion, for overall Fortnite, I think building is the way to go. It makes the game way more unique, it makes endgame scenarios way more enjoyable, it's way more satisfying to get kills. It may be really difficult, but that's kind of the fun of it. I'm not someone who really gets frustrated easily by Fortnite anymore, so it's not a big deal to me when I die to somebody who's really good at the game. I'm a person who's able to kind of step back and be like, alright, GG's, and load up a new match and get some fun kills the next round. I definitely enjoy the game both ways for sure. I think that no building is a great addition to the game and I hope it stays, but in my opinion, building reigns supreme. But anyway guys, that is just my opinion. What do you guys think about building versus no building? Leave a comment down below and let me know. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new because I make videos like this all the time, and you can also use my supporter creator code Bendominator in the Fortnite item shop #ad. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.